What's up, guys, and welcome back to Antimatter Chemistry Progression Log 7. We've now gone past of how many progression logs Mechanical Mastery was, and a quick time 7.09 days or 170 hours. So I've been putting a lot of time in this week. Again, no Helldivers. Uh, waiting on that PC upgrade still. And I've got a lot to show you. There's some stuff that I'm very excited about. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look. So I guess first off, let's see. Oh, we're gonna start off with Autocrafting. I really like this viaduct network. I'm gonna be honest, but I do need to re-network it. I think in some places it can be a little bit better. I did a lot more. I added a bunch of stuff to on demand. Instead of making flux crystals passive, for instance, no, lag spikes. Instead of making flux crystals on passive, I make them on demand. You don't really need them in the kind of numbers where you need them on passive, and anything that is passive right now doesn't require flux, so it's fine. Over here, this just makes charged Certus quartz, and this just uses droppers with clocks underneath so they can keep getting tapped. XNet to cycle between all three of these things, so there's one on each side, one for redstone, charged Certus quartz, and nether quartz, because nether quartz is also on passive. I'll show you that later. Also, I very clearly upgraded my actual auto crafting, as in straight crafting stuff with molecular assemblers. This little chunk here was never going to be enough, and it was kind of stupid of me to even spend the time for that. So instead, I have this gigantic wall, and yes, it's not as efficient because one pattern provider instead of having 3 or 4 molecular assemblers like you can if you do a checkerboard pattern. Each one only has two, but each interface only gets 2 molecular assemblers, and those 2 molecular assemblers are just for one interface. So if I want to separate patterns on different molecular assemblers, I don't have to try and guess which pattern providers are overlapping on molecular assemblers effectively. We also have on-demand chemical dissolving and some level of on-demand chemical combining. One interesting thing is here, if I wanted to I tried to set it up without needing slot fillers. We'll come over here. Chemical combiners. Here we go. You can see here I use 8 slot fillers and 16 selenium to make a selenium ingot. And that's because, well, you can't lock them that way like you can for other there. Then it's kind of pointless. Why do it on demand that way? Um, so I use slot fillers to make sure blocking mode works, because without the slot fillers, blocking mode didn't work on the interfaces. Because what blocking mode is supposed to do is, as soon as it pushes a pattern to the inventory, 82 should cease pushing items to the inventory, and that didn't work without the slot fillers, and I am not entirely sure why. So, but I added slot fillers, reduced it to 1 ingot at a time because I wanted to do 4 ingots at a time, and it works fine. So that's just what we're gonna do. The other thing is, I also set up thallium on demand, even though it's actually a chance recipe. I can show you here. It has a 50% chance of coming from soul sand, and I have soul sand on. We can actually dissolver. You can see I have 10 soul sand to make 1 thallium. That's obviously not guaranteed, but it's a very, 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 very low chance that you get no thallium per soul sand from 10 soul sand, and it's more likely that you'll get multiple. So then I'll have excess or whatever, and then it'll be fine. So it's not perfect, but it's fine. The other thing is I'm upgrading my crafting monitor, my crafting CPUs here, and they're actually I dug out 2 layers below here. See, so I can add. So the idea is we have 6 co-processing units, 8 of these 64 crafting storages, and then 1 crafting monitor. And this is definitely overkill, but last night I was making some monster crafts, and the original set of CPUs I had were just none of them were large enough. Even the ones that had were entirely made of storages or just mostly made of storages weren't enough. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. We're going big. I don't want to do this again. So we're going big because I don't want to go home. All right, so that's it for the auto crafting upgrades. I'm just gonna kind of fly around now, actually, instead of using the. Oh, over here we have ore processing. I kind of got what I realized is the single pulverizer and smelter was too slow. I have a budget quarry method by using refined tools, a builder. I can show you if I can type. So you have a builder, and this can do quarries. It can build structures and stuff. And normally the real quarry card is it's actually a little bit expensive. I can actually do it now because I can. This isn't too bad. I have to like dip into Draconic Evo, so this will be a couple hours. So because Draconic, this isn't. This might be a little bit worse than I thought it was. Anyway, this is something that's not that far off if I really want to push for it. But the budget quarry method is to actually use. Because if you actually go back and take a look at that, you could see it's 3,000 RF per tick per block. But if you do the budget quarry method, which you use a void card and it costs 0 RF, so it's literally free. And what you do with this is you use a whitelist. You use a list filter. Here, actually, I have it in my backpack. Oh, you have a whitelist mode filter, and you just set it to stuff you want to get rid of, and you plunk that bad boy down, turn it on, and it will delete everything but the ores. So then you have to go and mine the ores by yourself, and that's a little bit time consuming. But you get a lot of ore that way, and with creative flight and stable footing, it's not that bad. It's definitely the most efficient manual way, I think, rather than before when I was just vein mining stone. It's pretty nice, although it does pour liquid everywhere in those big holes in the deep dark. I've done some very mean things to the deep dark. Uh, it's pretty funny. This is burned through all the. It's literally what it was before, just larger and in its own area. I figured 8 was enough for now. One thing is these things are upgraded with no speed upgrades, but rather secondary output upgrades because I have 8 of them and I want the most bang for my buck. And instead of just having one interface and pumping into all of them, I didn't really want to mess with that. That's like, yeah, it would work with XNet, but also these things, these furnaces and stuff can auto push. So why not just simplify it for me? Interfaces aren't that expensive, so it's like, saves me some filtering time because there was a lot of clicks in here. That was a lot of clicking. Um, let's see, what else? We can come over here. Oh, that's. I'll get to that. I've added more fluids and stuff. Mostly on this side. I've added a couple more fluids, I think. Like fluorine and hydrogen. That's because, and I've also added more elements over here. We have luteum now. I'll show you where I'm getting that from in a bit. The other thing over here is, where is it? Oh, I forgot to lock that drawer. I have no silicon dioxide? That is weird. I wonder what it's getting used for. Skystone? No. Certus? Oh, it's getting used in Certus. Okay, that makes sense. Um, Over here I have an on mainnet storage for silicon dioxide. Eventually, I have to get some. I actually need to lock these drawers. I guess I forgot to lock them. Um, there we go. And then we'll just delete this extra stone. Um, this is on mainnet storage for silicon dioxide because the soul sand crafting recipe produces silicon dioxide byproduct, and I don't want that sitting in the drives. So I have a storage drawer for that, and this is just a regular storage drawer with a void upgrade on it because I have silicon dioxide on passive, and I don't really need a bajillion of it in mainnet. This is literally just a way for it to void excess stuff. I did a drive purge recently. And that was nice. It freed up some drive space. We're actually going to go talk about... Here, again, we're just going to fly around so you guys can get some more overview. I rebuilt the passive chemical wall now. It's not so tall. Here, let me... do I have a facade on me so I can show you? Maybe I'll grab a facade real quick. Here we go. You can see, instead of putting them on the top and having to stack the chemical combiners very high, I put them on the back. So instead of being limited by how many chemical combiners I could fit behind this wall, I am now limited by the number of drawers. This is the maximum length of drawers going that way. If I want to add more drawers, I'll have to go up, and I don't really want to do that. The other option is to convert some of these drawers to 4x4s instead. Maybe there'll be a few things. But I have nether quartz on passive, I have lead on passive, and I have barium on passive. I'll get to that in a minute. Oh, I also added a few more things over here, like charcoal and magnesium dust. Over here is... Oh, this is the obviously I removed that. There's still a hole in the ground from where I removed it. I actually increased the buffer size on these processors because like when I was making the crafting storages, I actually ran through the whole buffer like twice. And because gold's on passive, redstone's on passive, and silicon's been on passive forever, and I'm starting to use larger and larger crafts, I was like, well, you know what? Why not, right? And I also upgraded the speed on these things. Not that one. This one. The ones that everything except the engineering processors are, and I think the calculation ones aren't sped up. Maybe they are. I forgot. These things are just passive buffers, and the reason why I've decided to not do them on demand is because if I was doing them on demand, they would just be in a maximum speed advanced inscriber. So why not make the passive ones just the max size and just have large buffers? It's like the same thing, effectively, in my opinion, anyway. And it saves me having to do on-demand stuff, some more on-demand stuff for stuff that's already passive with gigantic buffers. Because if I'm setting up like a craft that requires more than 2,000 logic processors, I should tone it down a little bit probably, or just at that point also increase the buffer. Because if I'm have the resources to spend, that's 2,000 gold ingots on a craft. Well, I'm rich. So the other thing over here is we have the nuclear craft chemical line for calcium sulfate for the depleted uranium battery for the elite nuclear craft batteries. Because is it this one? No. Where is it? Where do you need it? Oh, I know. You need it in the advanced plating. Where do you need the calcium sulfate from? I forget. You need calcium sulfate for something. The crystal binder for the elite platings. That's what you need it for. And you use the elite platings in uh, DU platings. Huh. Anyway, I made calcium sulfate. I know I needed them for something, and because if I set up uh, if I set up DU lithium ion battery, it costs 72 calcium sulfate. Yeah, it needs elite plating somewhere in the craft. I forget where. So I had to set all of that up because in this version of the pack, you can't make it with chemical combiners. Um, I don't script these, so I'm just kind of balling. Calcium sulfate comes from, the chemical reactor, sulfuric acid, yada, this whole chain right here. So this is the only way to do it. So this is how I did. I also set up passive. You know how you get allogementum or whatever it is, and that becomes aluminum and silver. Well, I'm starting to melt that. It's pretty slow, but I have a lot of that now. We can take a look. 7,000 silver ingots and 9,000 aluminum ingots because each allogentum dust is 2 aluminum ingots and 1 silver ingot. So that's on passive over here. I also set up clear glass on passive since I use a lot of that, and I got tired of just feeding the Tinker's Construct smeltery by hand. I'd feed it like a full drawer, and I was still going through drawer after drawer after drawer. Um, so this is the new area that I put on top of the end of the hallway over here. Uh, I don't think I may have added a few more. Oh yeah, I added slag over here. The reason why there's stone here is because this is how you make slag. Like the stone bricks recipe gives you a 100% chance at slag, which you use for phytogrow, which is what I'm using. So I just have this on void because I don't really want this byproduct, but I have it because the slag is what I'm looking here for. So that was the only thing I added right there, and you can see I upped the buffers in some of these things. Um, Over here I added a few more things to be smelted, like charcoal and cactus green, because I used some of that stuff for other things. I don't think I have anything over here that I've upgraded. No. Now we're gonna talk about probably the favorite place in my base, which is the fission fusion reactor for alchemistry, the giant yard. This is the largest room in the base by far. As you can see, it's gigantic. One thing I do want to note that is very important is don't use building gadgets on network cable from XNet. It literally corrupted the world, and I had to load a backup. Fortunately, I only lost like 10 minutes of work, thankfully. I was trying to figure out a way to fix it and then realized, well, the backup's 10 minutes, and I'm not going to fix this in 10 minutes, so whatever. So to keep backups, I actually reduced the backup count to one every hour, the time. And then these are the fission reactors, and man, I really love this. It's totally extra, but it's fantastic. So instead of like you can get luteum through purpur blocks, but I don't really want to do that because this is like really annoying. You have to do a bunch of phytogenic insulators, and I have a bunch of calcium and a bunch of antimony. It comes from calcium comes from the mob farm, and antimony comes from the dive room area that I'll show you in a little bit. Um, so I'm like, well, you need luteum. If you split that, you don't need it for the actual singularities, but it splits into bromine, which you do need. Where is bromine? Oh man, I wish I had a. Anyway, so we'll see. This splits into bromine and krypton, and both are needed for singularities. So obviously these things are also needed for singularities, but they're passive in other ways. And actually they turned off now. These things are all redstone controlled, and how they're redstone controlled is there's a level emitter back here, and this connects to the connector that pulls stuff out of the fusion controller. So when I set this to 75,000. So when luteum is above 75,000, it will stop pulling stuff out of the fusion controller to let it back up. And how I make sure to limit items in here is I have it. This is actually an extra channel because I was trying to mess around doing controls in the XNet system, like how I did with the redstone stuff for the nuclear reactors, and I couldn't get it to work. I don't know why. So instead, I just did redstone control. So there's actually cables coming out over here. Also, when these things are on, it'll turn on these lights too, so you can like wander around and go, oh, that one's on, or that one's on, or whatever, without having to like actually go over because and check them manually, because you can see these things are still green even though they're not actually doing anything. So you wouldn't be able to tell they're doing anything unless you went over and clicked on them, and I think it's cool, so I did it that way. And how I do keep it, I have a channel 1 for first item and a channel for second item, and then I just export from the interface, and then I whitelist the antimony, whatever element I want to be the first one, whatever element I want to be the second one, set max and 16, max and 16, works. Round robin, good to go. We amount of items to extract, this is extraction for 32, so it'll do 32 at a time, so it works. And I have 2 for luteum, and I'll probably do 2 for another element, then 2 for another element, then 2 for another element. There is room for 10 in each row, and I have 2 for fusion, and so I have 2 rows for fission and 2 rows for fusion. So that'll be 20 of each. So that'll be a lot of elements, and if I need more, I'm going to leave this area unused, so I can just cut out this wall and just extend it that way, or stack them. I haven't really decided which one I want to do yet. So the other thing is I haven't done redstone control for the fission reactors because it's technically more complex, because instead of being able to easily level emit off one item, I have to level emit off 2, and I have to do an AND gate. That's pretty easy, actually. Over here is just a quick test. I'm thinking about using redstone P2Ps here. So if I turn both of these on, it turns on this light, which is just the test thing, so I know if it works. So the idea is I might build like a big control room, like a raised control room here, that'll be like probably about this height, so you can see all the lights, and you'll have like there'll be like a big control panel that'll tell you which fission reactors and which fusion reactors are running, and the AND gate stuff will be done in this room, and then I'll use redstone P2Ps to control the redstone, like how I did for the level emitter over there. But that's a very long-term project and going to be very complex. So that'll be fun to do. This is just the beginning of the staircase over here. I have to design how I want to do the staircase. I want to make sure, again, everything's properly gridded out, so we'll have to figure out how to do that. Over here, let's see. I think that's probably it for the passive side. I added a few gears. I have cryo ducts. Phyto grow, which I'll show that in a minute. We're going to have to go all the way. This base is getting very, very large, which is why I want to do a viaduct rebuild, specifically of like You know how there's like the long range ones and then the short range ones? I have too many of these short range ones, too many of these stops. So I'm not sure how I want to like re sort of factor this, I guess. Uh, yeah. So I think like these two can be one. Uh, maybe yeah, I'm not really sure how I want to do that yet. That's something I'm really gonna have to think about. Definitely over here can be a lot of changes. Uh, we'll have to see. The farm is still the farm. One thing is these magnetic insulators don't actually work with the resonance, so I just have to turn it off. And one thing I did is I kept picking up sticks, apples, peaches, and pears from this farm. I don't know why, because these things cover just an absolute gigantic. They actually cover like the entire area and then some, and I still get them. Like this everywhere inside the flame particles is covered by magnetic insulators, and it's a 16 by 16 by 16 cube around each one. So I don't know why I was picking them up. So what I did is I just physically blacklisted them in the magnet. Because you shift right click and you can see I just blacklisted them. And that seemed to fix it, sort of. I still get like weird like ghost items from the farm, like loot chests and experience that I don't pick up but looks like I'm picking up. Okay, well we're gonna go over to the passive area now because there's been some changes over here. Where is specifically... Oh, I'm flying the wrong direction. It's very easy to get turned around in this base, I think, sometimes. No big changes over here. From what yeah, it's the same. But the big changes, here we go. We got DML. I've added a few more. I added wither skeletons and withers, so now I have passive nether stars. And I have passive wither skulls. I made a bunch of these end crystals as well. You know, here I have 2,300, and then I turned it off. I did a stupid at one point. I was using drawers here because I forgot this wasn't on a subnet, and I had 12,000 ender pearls and 2,000 end crystals in my main drives because I pulled a stupid. I can't believe I did that. So these things just run forever now. I have a bunch of ender pearls. It's kind of ridiculous how much of this stuff I have now. Yeah. So, you know, this is a big power cost. 2,000 RF per 2048. But I've got a ton of overhead. That big LEU 235 oxide, or yeah, it's 235 oxide. That one right there produces a bunch of power. Just a monstrous amount. It's pretty good. Here is the dye area, the dye subnet. This excuse me. We have water coming in here. This returns items to the main net. We have beetroots, which I'm not farming fast enough, so I'll need to do that. Phyto grow, bone meals, which I'm not making fast enough. But this makes over here, we have light blue, pink, no, it's magenta, sorry. Magenta and lime dye. We have dandelions being made here from the phytogenic insulator. Yellow dye, they get pulverized into yellow dye, and all these things just get dissolved back into their base elements, and then passed back to the main system. And this method gets me lead, iodine, cadmium, chromium, barium, copper, silicon, and oxygen. Let's see. Magenta dye gives you, yeah, so all that good stuff. And then lime dye gets you the chromium and oxygen and sulfur. And cadmium. Light blue dye, I think, gives you this, what was it, the antimony. Yeah, antimony trioxide, cobalt aluminate, and then yellow dye gives you the lead iodine. And this is how I get passive lead now. So, very nice, very cool. That's, I think, probably pretty much it in terms of the big changes. Yeah, so I've been putting a lot of work in. I also got protection 4 on all my armor recently. I went to go fight the Wither and got humbled. I'm used to having the dark matter armor in combat for Mechanical Mastery, where it's just an auto click. That's not the case now. This armor is not as good as I, figured it was. I'm like, oh, full armor bar, it'll be fine. No, I got my world rocked. I'll tell you that. Um, so I just upgraded my armor and it's fine. Then I actually kicked its ass, and it wasn't too bad to farm like 6 of them, especially since I made a bunch of, diamond and gold apples and stuff. Pretty cheap for me at this point, because I'm very wealthy. We can actually come over here and take a look at. Look at all this stuff. This is great. I'm so happy with this. The only thing I don't have a lot of is thorium ingots, and I still have like no uranium byproduct. I eat all the uranium for fuel. Just whenever it goes in, it just comes out as just everything gets consumed for the fuel, which isn't like great, but it's also not like terrible. Eventually the buffers will fill up. I just have to and like I've gone through so much thorium. Like I for a while I had like 1700 after the first time I did the budget quarry, and then I went to go after I dropped down to like 400. I had to go do it again, and now I burned through like another 1,000 ingots in just a couple hours. Because the thorium reactor is running 24/7 because it only produces 8400 RF and it's on priority 1. So it's always running. It's fine because, this thing lasts like 5 minutes, but it does cost 9 ingots per fuel. So that's rough. We have the big DU lithium-ion battery, 500 million RF here. I finally got rid of the resonant energy cells. They were storing too little, and they had a max transfer rate of 25,000. And you can see we've gone well beyond that at this point. We're up to 26, or we've gone beyond that at this point. We're up to like 26,000. So that was no longer viable a long time ago, especially since together I was like twice that limit as well. The redstone control is still working here. Fantastic, by the way. Very nice. Yeah. The farm over here, I kind of want to change this, or maybe add more growth crystals or something, or like at least like change the way what kind of crops I'm growing, especially. I'm not sure where else I'm getting. I'm getting carbon from other sources as well, so I might pull most of the carrots out because I'm getting it from the mob drops. Because you get it from uh, gunpowder, dissolves into 8 carbon. We have rotten flesh, which dissolves into 9 each. We have spider eyes as well, which are just carrots but better in every way because this is a guaranteed output for 2. So it's my carbon supply is pretty friggin' good right now, so that's not too bad. Calcium supply is also looking pretty. Where is it? Oh, calcium. Because I use that for the fusion. Yeah, it's looking pretty healthy right now, especially because you get a bunch of it from bones. You get 5 per bone. Uh, yeah. Let's see. 1 bone, or you get like 15 per bone. Whew. So lots of good calcium there. So I've got pretty good on elements right now. So I'll probably swap all this stuff out for this will probably this will probably become like beets and then some maybe a little bit some more nether warts, and I'll start dissolving those. I have an idea of how to do redstone control for that by crafting them into blocks and then redstone controlling the crafting rather than trying to redstone control import these things over here. But we'll have to see. That's again something that's not really quite important right now. It's like not a fit. It's not as good as it could be, but it does work, and it's not like hurting for resources or anything at this point. So it's kind of okay to just keep limping along, tbh. That's pretty much all I've got in this for this update. This is another long video. We have 2 long videos back to back. And I want to mention that next week is finals week, and I've got a lot of stuff coming up. So I might not even have enough stuff next week for even an update video. Or if I do, it'll be a pretty short one. We'll have to see. I've been this week was kind of the lull week between when everything was finished and finals week. So I'm feeling pretty good. And I don't have too many finals to study for either, so it's not so bad, which is why I've been kind of lazing about. Honestly, like Thursday and Friday, I didn't do anything but play just Minecraft all day, which is, definitely not good, or, well, not responsible. But, I had a good time, so there's that. The other thing is, like, my progression in this pack has been exceptionally slow. But you know what? I don't care. I've been really enjoying this. Like, this is so extra. Like, setting up all this stuff and, the way it looks and making it look nice and having it being gigantic or whatever like this is definitely like way more than it needs to be. But I've been having a good time building. Honestly, that's a big difference between this pack and how I played this pack and how I played Mechanical Mastery. Like Mechanical Mastery was just a straight automation pack, and that's how I played it. And I didn't really consider aesthetics at all when I was playing it. Even I did it a little bit, at least so it wasn't like a garbage looking base made out of cobblestone or anything. Um, it was just like a big flat plane of cobblestone. But this time I wanted to do something a lot more decorative and spend a lot more time on aesthetics. And like, yeah, practicality does have to come out on top a few times because these things are all these machine pads are very uh, practical. They don't look very good. Eventually, I'm hoping to make them look more like over here, but I'm constantly adding more machines to those lines, and like I was able to do this because it's not too difficult to add these single machines and stuff. But especially since they're especially the chemical wall is pretty close to done, and I don't add stuff very often to that. We'll have to see if I really want to spend some time decorating in that respect because there's just a lot of these pads or these sections, whatever you want to call them, and that would be hours of work of just building walls and stuff, which isn't like the worst thing in the world. Um, but I spent so much time doing like with like the cables alone right here. Let me tell you, this takes also so long to. You have to just place all these things. It takes forever. So I have to balance between wanting to do stuff and building. Fortunately, I've really been enjoying the building in this playthrough, which is nice. So that's it from me, I think, from today. I know it's, again, a little bit of a long progress log, so there's that. But, I've been enjoying my time here, so I'm hoping you guys and at least take a little bit of something away from this. If you guys have like questions or if you guys want me to go over like a specific setup in a little bit more detail because you want to know more about it because you want to use it for yourself or just because you're curious, especially XNet, so it can be a little bit overwhelming at first. When you first look at it, like, oh, that's a lot of buttons and a lot of things and looking at it or whatever. Um, so there's that. I can go over a little bit of that and stuff if that would be nice. Um, Still, all right. Yeah, that's it. I've been rambling for too long, and this video is far over 30 minutes by now, so we'll go ahead and cut it here. Um, all right. I will. Thanks for watching, and maybe see you guys next week. The week after that, for sure. But maybe next week. We'll have to see. All right. Thanks.